I never thought our family land would become a battleground. The property had been in our family for 3 generations. 120 acres of beautiful countryside with rolling hills, a small lake, and endless memories. Growing up, my brother James and I spent our summers there, catching fireflies in mason jars and listening to Grandpa's stories on the wraparound porch. It was our sanctuary, our piece of heaven on earth. Those summer evenings remain etched in my memory, the way the sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks behind the old oak tree. The sound of the screen door slamming as we ran in and out. The smell of Grandma's apple pie cooling on the windowsill. James and I would lie on our backs in the tall grass, naming shapes in the clouds and planning our futures. Back then, we were inseparable. He was my big brother, my protector, my best friend. One day, he'd say, pointing to the expanse of land around us, "We'll build our own houses right here. Our kids will grow up together just like we did." "Promise?" I'd ask, holding up my pinky finger. "Promise?" he'd reply, hooking his pinky with mine. That was before college, before careers, before marriages and divorces, before life pulled us in different directions and money became a measuring stick of worth in his eyes. After Grandpa passed away 5 years ago, the land sat mostly unused. Mom and Dad had moved to Florida for retirement, enjoying their golden years in a community where they played golf and hosted dinner parties with their new friends. None of us had the time or resources to maintain such a large property. The old farmhouse remained, but it was showing its age, peeling paint, creaking floors, and windows that rattled with every breeze. Still, whenever I visited, driving down that long gravel road, something inside me settled. It felt like coming home. Until last spring, when James called a family meeting. "I've been thinking," he announced, his voice brimming with excitement as we gathered in my parents' living room during their brief visit back home. He stood tall, confident in his tailored button-down shirt and designer watch, the very picture of success. "We should do something with Grandpa's land, build something meaningful, something that brings the family together." Everyone leaned forward with interest. Mom's eyes lit up at the mention of Grandpa's property. Dad nodded approvingly, pride evident in the way he looked at James. My sister Olivia, always quick to align with James, clasped her hands together in anticipation. "I'm thinking of building a family compound," James continued, pulling out his iPad and showing us professionally rendered architectural drawings. "Multiple houses, a shared community space, maybe even renovate the old barn into a gathering place. We could all contribute, have our own spaces, but come together whenever we want." The images were stunning. Modern homes with large windows overlooking the lake, a communal fire pit, walking trails connecting the properties, and the old barn transformed into a rustic, chic event space. It was thoughtfully designed, impressively detailed. "I've already spoken with an architect friend," James added. "He thinks we could break ground by fall if we move quickly." The idea was beautiful, I had to admit. The thought of my daughter Emma having the same childhood experiences I'd had, of all our extended family having a place to gather for holidays and summer barbecues, it was appealing. I could almost see Emma and her cousins running across the same fields where James and I had played, fishing in the same lake, creating their own memories. "That sounds wonderful," Mom said, squeezing Dad's hand. Her eyes misted over slightly. "Your grandfather would have loved to see his land bringing the family together like this." "I'm in," my sister Olivia chimed in, her enthusiasm immediate and unquestioning. "David and the kids would love it. The boys need a place to run wild, and with baby number 3 on the way, we could definitely use a country escape." Her husband David, a successful cardiac surgeon, nodded in agreement. They lived in a beautiful colonial in an exclusive suburb, their 2 boys attending private school. Their life was picture perfect, at least from the outside. All eyes turned to me. I worked as a financial advisor at a mid-sized firm, and while I was comfortable, I wasn't as visibly successful as James with his thriving construction business. or Olivia with her surgeon husband. My life had taken a different path. After college, I'd married my sweetheart Ryan, and we'd had Emma shortly after. For years, things were good. Not extravagant, but stable and happy. Then came the divorce 3 years ago. Ryan had fallen in love with a colleague, and our separation had been financially draining. He'd hired an aggressive attorney who seemed determined to leave me with as little as possible. The legal fees alone had decimated my savings. I'd fought hard to keep our modest home for Emma's sake, wanting to provide her with stability during the upheaval. Only recently had I begun to recover financially, quietly investing what I could in carefully chosen opportunities. "I think it's a great idea," I said sincerely, meeting James's expectant gaze. "I'd love to be part of it." James nodded, but I noticed a slight hesitation in his eyes, a flicker of something I couldn't quite name. Was it doubt? Concern? Whatever it was, it vanished quickly as he continued outlining his vision. "Great. I'll set up a project schedule and start getting quotes from contractors. We'll need to discuss budget soon, figure out how to divide everything fairly." Over the next few months, plans developed quickly. James hired an architect, and we started having regular Zoom meetings to discuss designs and finances. Each time, I noticed how James would direct the important questions to Olivia and her husband, often skipping over me entirely. When I did offer suggestions, they were usually met with a polite nod before being dismissed or redirected. "What about keeping the old oak tree and building around it?" I suggested during one meeting, remembering all the afternoons we'd spent in its shade. "It's been there since before Grandpa's time. He proposed to Grandma underneath it." "That's a nice thought," James replied, exchanging glances with the architect. "But it's right in the center of where we need the driveway. It'll have to go." I swallowed my disappointment. That tree held so many memories. The swing Grandpa had hung for us, the carving of our initials, the shade where we'd picnicked every summer. "Couldn't we adjust the plans a bit?" I pressed. "Maybe curve the driveway around it? I'm sure Emma's not the only one who would love to have that swing for the next generation." "That would add unnecessary costs," James said dismissively. "We need to be practical here. The tree is old and probably not in the best shape anyway. Better to start fresh." I noticed how he never applied the same practical standards to Olivia's requests for an expansive deck with an outdoor kitchen or his own plans for a boat dock on the small lake. Those luxury additions were deemed investments in our quality of life. During another meeting, I suggested preserving the original farmhouse, renovating it rather than demolishing it. "There's so much history there," I argued, "and it would be more sustainable to work with what we have." "The foundation has issues," James countered, though no formal inspection had been done. "It would cost more to fix it up than to start fresh. Plus, the layout is outdated. We need modern spaces." Again, Olivia sided with James. "I have to agree. The old house is charming, but it would be a money pit. And honestly, those small rooms and narrow hallways just wouldn't work for entertaining." It felt as if piece by piece, every element that connected the land to our past, to Grandpa's legacy, was being erased in favor of something shinier, more impressive, more reflective of James and Olivia's current status. And with each dismissal of my suggestions, I felt increasingly sidelined in the decision-making process. The real tension began during the financial planning meeting in early summer. James had created a detailed spreadsheet showing expected contributions from each family unit. He shared his screen, walking us through the numbers with the confidence of someone used to managing large construction projects. "Based on the costs and our relative situations," James explained, "I think an even split makes sense. Each of us contributes equally to the main infrastructure, roads, utilities, the communal spaces, and then we each fund our own houses." I stared at the numbers on my screen, my stomach sinking. The equal contribution was $175,000 per family unit for infrastructure alone, plus the cost of building our individual homes, estimated at minimum another $250,000 each. The total investment would be well over $400,000 per family, a staggering amount that would clean out my rebuilt savings and then some. That's a lot, I said carefully, aware of everyone's eyes on me. I might need a longer timeline than you're suggesting. James's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. We need the funds up front to break ground and get the utilities in place. The contractor won't start without a significant deposit, and we're trying to get on their calendar for September. I understand that, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. But I'm just getting back on my feet after the divorce. I might need to stagger my payments, perhaps commit to a smaller initial amount, and then contribute more over time. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. I could feel my face growing hot with embarrassment, hating that I had to expose my financial vulnerability this way. Maybe you should sit this one out then, James finally said, his tone deceptively casual, as if he were suggesting I skip a dinner party rather than exclude me from a family legacy. We can always build your place later when you're more financially stable. But it's family land, I protested, hurt blooming in my chest like a sudden bruise. Grandpa left it to all of us equally. I should have a place there from the beginning. Yes, but this is about building something new, James countered, leaning back in his chair. And that requires investment. We can't just carry people who can't contribute their fair share. The word carry stung like a slap, as if I were a burden, a charity case. Mom and Dad exchanged uncomfortable glances but said nothing. Their silence felt like a betrayal, a tacit endorsement of James's position. They had always been proud of his success, impressed by his business acumen. In their eyes, he could do no wrong. I want to contribute, I insisted, trying to keep the emotion from my voice. I just might need a different timeline or a different structure. Maybe I could contribute labor instead, help with some of the work to offset costs. James sighed as if dealing with a difficult child. Look, we have a momentum going here. The contractors are ready, the plans are drawn up. We can't wait indefinitely, and no offense, but what we need is capital, not unskilled labor. I'm not asking for indefinite time, I said, my voice growing firmer as indignation began to replace embarrassment. Just some flexibility. And I may not be a contractor, but I'm certainly capable of painting, landscaping, or handling the paperwork. The thing is, James leaned forward, looking directly at me, his tone shifting to one of forced patience. This project needs people who are fully committed, both financially and emotionally. If you can't meet the financial requirements now, maybe this just isn't the right time for you to be involved. The implication stung, as if my commitment to our family legacy could be measured solely by the size of my bank account, as if all my other contributions to the family, the emotional labor, the time spent caring for Grandpa in his final years, the holidays hosted, the family connections maintained, counted for nothing if I couldn't write a big enough check. The meeting ended awkwardly, with promises to think things over and reconvene. But the damage was done. I felt excluded, diminished, reduced to my financial capacity rather than valued as a family member with equal standing. Over the next few weeks, I noticed the family group chat buzzing with updates about the project, discussions about roofing materials, landscaping plans, furniture for the communal spaces. But I was no longer included in the formal meetings. When I asked about the next scheduled call, James claimed it was an oversight that I hadn't received the invite. We didn't think you'd be interested in the minutiae since you're still deciding about your level of involvement, he explained, not quite meeting my eyes. It became clear that they were moving forward without me, making decisions that would affect the entire property, our shared inheritance, while I was left on the sidelines. Each new development felt like another door closing, another confirmation that in their eyes, I wasn't an equal partner in this family endeavor. Then came the 4th of July family gathering at my parents' house. Everyone was there, including extended family and some family friends. The main topic of conversation, the exciting new family compound being built on Grandpa's land. I stood by the grill, nursing a lemonade, watching as James proudly showed off the architectural renderings on his tablet to our cousins. He'd even brought a scale model of the development, which sat prominently on a table on the deck, drawing admiring comments from everyone who passed by. "This will be Olivia's place," he explained, pointing to a large 2-story home near the lake. "And this one is mine. We're going with farmhouse modern style, lots of natural light, open floor plans." "What about your sister's house?" our cousin Mark asked, gesturing vaguely in my direction. James hesitated just long enough for it to be noticeable. "We're still working out some details for that section," he said smoothly. "Probably a later phase of the project." I felt a tug at my sleeve and looked down to see my daughter Emma, her expression puzzled. "Mom, when will our house be built? Uncle James said we might not have one." My heart sank. "He said what?" "He told Aunt Olivia that we probably wouldn't be part of the first phase," Emma explained, her 12-year-old face confused and a little hurt. "He said maybe we'd get a small guest house eventually." "Are we not going to live there with everyone else?" I forced a smile, trying to mask the hurt and anger rising within me. "Don't worry about it, sweetie. Adult stuff. Go play with your cousins. I think they're setting up the volleyball net." As she ran off, I made my way toward James, who was now serving himself from the buffet table, laughing at something David had said. "Can we talk?" I asked quietly, touching his arm. He glanced around as if looking for an escape, then nodded reluctantly. We moved to a quiet corner of the yard, partially screened by my mother's hydrangea bushes. "Did you tell Olivia we wouldn't be part of the first phase?" I asked directly, keeping my voice low. "That maybe we'd get a small guest house eventually?" James had the grace to look slightly embarrassed, though whether at having said it or at being caught I couldn't tell. "I was just being realistic. Given your financial situation—" "My financial situation is my business," I interrupted, a rare assertiveness in my tone. "And I don't appreciate you discussing it with others, especially in a way that confuses and upsets my daughter." He set his plate down on the nearby patio table. "Look, I'm trying to make this project happen for everyone. But there are realities we have to face. The contractor needs commitments, real financial commitments." "I've told you I'm committed," I insisted, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I just need some flexibility with the timeline and payment structure. There are ways to work this out if you're actually interested in including me." "What you need," James cut in, his voice hardening as he crossed his arms, "is to be realistic. This project has a timeline and budget requirements. Either you're in or you're out. We can't hold up progress for one person who can't meet the obligations." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the hurt and anger rising within me. "So, what exactly are you saying?" James looked around to make sure no one was within earshot, then leaned in. His voice dropped to a harsh whisper, his expression tightening. "I'm saying that if you're not helping financially, don't come. Don't pretend to be part of something you can't contribute to. It's not fair to those of us carrying the weight." The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. All my life, I'd been the responsible one. The one who stayed close to home to help Mom and Dad while James and Olivia pursued opportunities across the country. I was the one who drove Grandpa to his doctor appointments in his final years, who sat with him during chemotherapy sessions when everyone else was too busy with their important lives. I was the one who organized his funeral while James was too busy to arrive until the day before, and Olivia was dealing with morning sickness from her second pregnancy. And now I was being told I didn't deserve to be part of our family legacy because I couldn't write a check large enough, fast enough. "That land belongs to all of us," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. "Grandpa wanted it that way. He left it to us equally." "Ownership and development are different things," James replied dismissively, waving a hand as if swatting away my argument. "Yes, technically we all own equal shares of the raw land, but we're creating something new here, something that requires investment. If you can't invest, you can't expect to benefit at the same level as those who do. I looked across the yard at my daughter, laughing with her cousins as they set up the volleyball net. At my parents, who were showing old family photos on Mom's iPad to some friends. At Olivia, pregnant with her third child, rubbing her belly as she chatted with an aunt. They were my family, my history, my future. And my brother was trying to wall me out of a shared future on our ancestral land because I couldn't match his financial contribution on his rigid timeline. I see, I said finally, the words tasting bitter. So the family and family compound only includes those who can afford the entry fee. James had the decency to look uncomfortable, but he didn't back down. That's not what I meant. Of course you're family, but this is a major financial undertaking, not a sentimental project. We can't make financial decisions based purely on emotions. The irony wasn't lost on me. This entire project had been pitched as an emotional, sentimental endeavor to honor Grandpa's legacy and keep the family connected. But apparently, that sentiment only extended to those with sufficient capital to buy in. I'll let you know my decision soon, I said finally, walking away before I said something I might regret. Something that would create a rift that couldn't be easily mended. For the rest of the afternoon, I went through the motions of the family celebration, helping Mom serve dessert, making small talk with relatives, taking photos of the kids playing games. But inside, I felt hollow, disconnected from the easy camaraderie around me. Every time I caught James or Olivia looking in my direction, their expressions a mixture of pity and impatience, something hardened within me. That night, after driving home and putting an exhausted Emma to bed, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and my laptop. The house was quiet. The only sound the gentle hum of the air conditioner and the distant barking of a neighbor's dog. For the first time all day, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of James's words, the deep hurt they had caused. Then, deliberately setting those feelings aside, I pulled up my financial records and really looked at them, not with fear or shame, but with clear eyes and a strategic mind. What James didn't know, what none of them knew, was that while my divorce had indeed been costly, I'd made some smart investments in the years since. As a financial advisor, I had access to opportunities that most people didn't, and I had put what little I could save into carefully chosen ventures. In particular, I'd invested in a tech startup founded by a former client, accepting stock options as partial payment for my advisory services when the company was still in its infancy. 2 months ago, that startup had been acquired by a larger company, and those stock options had multiplied exponentially in value. The deal had only recently closed, and the funds had been transferred to my account last week. I hadn't told anyone about this windfall, partly because the timing was so recent, and partly because I'd learned during my divorce the value of financial privacy. The less people knew about your resources, the less they could try to claim or control. I'd been planning to use the money to secure Emma's college fund, pay off the remaining mortgage on our house, and perhaps buy a small vacation property where we could make new memories. Just the two of us. But now, staring at the account balance, significantly larger than what James was asking each family to contribute to the compound, I saw another possibility. The next morning, after dropping Emma off at her summer day camp, I called my lawyer, Sarah Zhang. We'd become friends during my divorce when she'd fought fiercely to ensure I received a fair settlement. She answered on the second ring. Sarah Zhang speaking. Sarah, it's me. I need some information about the family property, I explained, tapping my pen against the notepad in front of me. The one my grandfather left to us. The 120 acres? What about it? She asked, her voice shifting from professional to friendly. I know it's owned jointly by my siblings and me, but is there anything preventing one owner from buying out the others? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual, even as my heart raced with the audacity of what I was considering. Sarah was quiet for a moment, and I could hear the faint sound of papers rustling. No, not legally. But it would require their agreement to sell their portions. They can't be forced to sell in a joint tenancy situation like this, absent some extreme circumstances. And if someone else wanted to buy the entire property? A third party? That would still require all owners to agree to sell, Sarah explained. No one can unilaterally sell the entire property. Each owner can only sell their own share, and even then, there might be restrictions. I'd need to review the specific inheritance documents. Unless what? Unless there's a provision in the inheritance documents allowing for a right of first refusal or some other transfer mechanism. Some family properties have clauses stating that if one owner wants to sell their share, they must first offer it to the other owners before selling to an outside party. I remembered something about that from when Grandpa's will was read. At the time, it had seemed like a mere formality, a way of keeping the property in the family if possible. None of us had imagined selling our shares. Can you check if that applies here? I asked, feeling a plan beginning to take shape. Give me a day to review the documents, Sarah promised. I should have them in your file, but I might need to request some additional paperwork from the county recorder's office. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your help. Of course. And is everything okay? This seems sudden. I hesitated, then decided that if anyone needed to know the full picture, it was my attorney. James is trying to develop the property into a family compound, but he's effectively cutting me out because I supposedly can't contribute enough financially on his timeline. Sarah's sigh was audible. Let me guess, he's not considering your non-financial contributions or offering any flexibility? Exactly. He basically told me if I can't pay up, I shouldn't be involved. Well, Sarah said, her tone sharpening the way it did when she spotted a legal opportunity. Let me look into this and get back to you. I suspect we have more options than your brother realizes. The next afternoon, Sarah called back. You're in luck, she said without preamble. I've reviewed the deed and your grandfather's will, and there is indeed a right of first refusal clause, but with an interesting twist. I'm listening, I said, sitting up straighter in my office chair. If any owner receives a legitimate offer from a third party for their share, they must present that offer to the other owners, who then have the right to match it within 30 days. However, and this is the important part, if the other owners decline to match that offer, the selling owner can proceed with the third-party sale. My mind raced ahead, seeing the possibilities unfold. So if I can find someone willing to make an offer on James and Olivia's shares, and if they decline to match that offer, yes, your third party could buy them out. But there's more. What else? There's also a provision that if multiple owners wish to sell to the same third party, and the remaining owners decline their right of first refusal, the sale can proceed as a package. Essentially, if both James and Olivia wanted to sell to the same buyer, and you declined to match the offer, the buyer could purchase both their shares simultaneously. That's perfect, I said slowly, the pieces falling into place. I should warn you, Sarah added, her tone cautious. This kind of maneuver could create significant family tension. Are you prepared for that? I thought about James's dismissive attitude, his willingness to exclude me and Emma from the family legacy, the way he had reduced our worth to our financial contribution. I think that ship has already sailed, I replied, but I appreciate the concern. After hanging up with Sarah, I spent the afternoon developing my plan. It required some creativity and discretion. I reached out to Victor Chen, a business associate who had become a friend over years of working together. His investment firm had helped several of my clients, and he owed me a favor after I'd connected him with a particularly lucrative client last year. Over coffee at a quiet cafe far from my usual haunts, I explained the situation, omitting certain personal details but making clear what I needed. Victor listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions. So, you want me to make an offer on your siblings' shares of this family property? He summarized when I'd finished. Through my investment company, as a legitimate third party? Yes, I confirmed. The offer needs to be generous enough that it would be difficult for them to match, but not so outrageous that it seems suspicious. And it needs to come from a source that appears unrelated to me. Victor studied me for a moment. And your end goal here is... I met his gaze steadily. To gain control of the property my grandfather left to all of us equally, before my brother can effectively write me out of it. He nodded slowly. I can do this. My company makes real estate investments regularly, so there's nothing unusual about us approaching property owners with offers. Thank you, Victor. I appreciate your discretion. Just one question, he said as we were preparing to leave. What happens after we make the offer and they decline their right of first refusal? Do you actually want me to buy their shares? I smiled slightly. No, that's where phase 2 comes in. 3 days later, both James and Olivia received official letters presenting the offer from Chen Investment Properties LLC. As expected, they called an emergency family meeting. I received a text from James that simply read, "Family Zoom tonight, 8 p.m. Important." I prepared carefully for the call, choosing a neutral background in my home office and arranging my expression to reveal nothing of my involvement or plans. When I joined the call, James, Olivia, and our parents were already there, their faces tense with concern. "Someone's trying to buy the land," James announced without preamble, his face tight with concern. He held up the formal offer letter from Chen Investment Properties. "Some investment company I've never heard of wants to buy our shares of Grandpa's property." "All of our shares?" I asked innocently. "Just mine and Olivia's, actually," James said, frowning. "For some reason, they didn't approach you." "That's odd," I murmured, careful to keep my expression puzzled rather than satisfied. "Why would they want our land?" Olivia asked, one hand resting protectively on her pregnant belly. "And why only target certain shares?" "The offer letter mentions potential for development," James said, scanning the document again. "Something about the property's location being ideal for a boutique eco-resort. The price is substantial. But I don't want to sell. This is our family legacy." "How substantial?" Dad asked, practical as always. James named a figure that was indeed generous, about 30% above market value for comparable undeveloped land in the area. Exactly what Victor and I had agreed would be tempting, but not suspicious. "That's a lot of money," Mom said, looking conflicted. "But of course, the sentimental value—" "I'm not selling, regardless of price," James declared firmly. "This is our family compound we're talking about. Our future." "Our future," I repeated softly. "The one where some of us aren't welcome if we can't pay the entry fee." An uncomfortable silence fell over the call. James had the decency to look embarrassed, but quickly recovered, his expression hardening. "That's not what I meant," he backpedaled. "Of course you're welcome. We just need to figure out the financial arrangements that work for everyone." "Funny," I replied, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from my voice. "That's not what you said at the 4th of July gathering. Your exact words were, 'If you're not helping financially, don't come.'" Mom gasped softly. "James, you didn't say that." James flushed, glancing away from the camera. "I was frustrated. We're trying to make this project happen, and we need everyone to commit. But that doesn't mean we're excluding anyone permanently. It sure felt that way when you told my daughter we might get a small guest house eventually, as if we were distant relatives rather than equal inheritors," I countered. "Can we focus on the current issue?" Olivia interrupted, always quick to diffuse conflict that might make James look bad. "What are we going to do about this offer?" "Decline it, obviously," James said, his tone suggesting no other option was worth considering. "This is our family compound we're talking about. Our future." "Our future," I repeated, the words weighted with meaning. "The one you've been planning without me." "That's not fair," James protested, though his eyes slid away from the camera. "We've included you in the discussions." "Until I couldn't meet your arbitrary financial timeline," I pointed out. "Then suddenly I wasn't invited to meetings. And you were telling everyone I wouldn't be part of the first phase." "What are you thinking of doing about this offer, James?" Dad asked, attempting to steer the conversation back on track. Declining, as I said, James reiterated. I assume Olivia feels the same way? He looked at our sister, who nodded firmly. What about you? Mom asked me, her expression concerned. Did you receive an offer too? No, I replied truthfully. But if I had, you wouldn't consider selling, would you? Olivia asked, her voice small and worried. It would complicate everything if one of us sold to an outside party. I looked at their faces, these family members who had been so quick to diminish my place among them when it suited their purposes. What I would or wouldn't do isn't relevant since I didn't receive an offer, I said carefully. But I am curious. What happens now legally? Do you just decline and that's it? James frowned slightly. Well, according to the letter, they're giving us 30 days to respond. I assume we just send a formal decline. Actually, I said, affecting a thoughtful expression, I remember something from when Grandpa's will was read. Wasn't there a right of first refusal clause? Something about how if one owner wants to sell, they have to offer their share to the other owners first? James and Olivia exchanged glances. I think so, Olivia said slowly. But since we're not selling, that doesn't matter, right? I'm not sure, I said, tapping my chin. It might be worth checking the exact language. Sometimes these clauses have specific requirements. I'll have my lawyer look into it, James said dismissively. But the bottom line is, we're not selling. Well, I said calmly, you don't have to worry about my commitment anymore. What does that mean? Olivia asked, looking concerned. It means I've made my decision, I answered, meeting each of their gazes through the screen. I'm going to sell my share if I receive an offer. You can't, James protested, his composure cracking. This is family land. Yes, family land, I agreed. The same family where my daughter and I were deemed less valuable because we couldn't contribute enough money fast enough. The same family where my brother felt comfortable telling me not to come if I couldn't pay up. That's not fair, James argued, his face flushing with anger or embarrassment. Possibly both. We're just trying to be practical about a major development project. So am I replied evenly. The offer for your shares is very generous. If I receive a similar one, I'll strongly consider it. Unless, of course, you want to match it and buy my share. James looked flustered. We don't have that kind of liquid cash right now. We're about to break ground on the compound, and our capital is committed to that project. Then I guess if I receive an offer, I'll be selling to whoever is interested, I said with finality. You'd really do that? Olivia asked, her voice small and hurt. Sell Grandpa's land to strangers? The guilt trip might have worked before, but not now. Not after being sidelined and diminished. I'm making a business decision, I said, echoing James's earlier pragmatism. Isn't that what this has become? A business arrangement rather than a family legacy? That's not true, James protested. This is about family, about creating something lasting for all of us. All of us who can afford the entry fee, I corrected him. By your own admission, those who can't pay don't get to play. After a tense discussion where both James and Olivia tried to convince me to wait, to reconsider, to not be hasty, the call ended with nothing resolved. As expected, they both formally declined to match the third-party offer for their own shares 3 days later, while still pressuring me not to sell mine if approached. What they didn't know was that I had no intention of selling my share either. The next day, after James and Olivia's official declination was documented, Victor's investment company withdrew the offer for their shares, citing a change in investment strategy. Instead, I made my move. Through a separate LLC that Sarah had helped me set up, Woodland Creek Holdings, named after the stream that ran through a corner of our property, I made official offers to purchase both James and Olivia's shares at the same generous price they had just declined to pay to match the third-party offer. Sarah explained the legal mechanics to me as we prepared the paperwork. According to the right of first refusal clause, since they've already declined to purchase at this price point, they cannot prevent a sale at the same terms. They've effectively waived their right to block the transaction. So they're legally cornered, I summarized, signing the documents with a steady hand. Essentially, yes, they have two choices. Sell to your LLC at the price they've already passed on, or match the offer themselves, which James has already admitted they can't do because their liquid funds are committed to the compound construction. By that afternoon, the paperwork was being processed. I had effectively bought the entire property through my LLC, though they didn't yet know I was behind it. The final piece fell into place the next day during another emergency family call. James had called it, his text message terse. New development with the property. Family meeting 7 p.m. When I joined the call, James looked agitated, running his hand through his hair repeatedly, a nervous habit from childhood. Olivia's eyes were red-rimmed, as if she'd been crying. Our parents looked confused and concerned. The investment company withdrew their offer, James announced once everyone was present. But now we've received another offer from a different company, Woodland Creek Holdings LLC. They want to buy both our shares, Olivia's and mine. Another company? Dad asked, frowning. That's strange timing. It gets stranger, James continued, his voice tight. They're offering the exact same amount as the first company, to the dollar. That is odd, Mom agreed, looking worried. Do you know anything about this company? James shook his head. I tried to research them, but they seem to be newly formed. I can't find much information. I don't understand who this company is, or why they're so interested in our land, James was saying, frustration evident in his voice. First one company, then another, both offering the same exact price. Maybe we could reach out to them, see if they'd be willing to work with our development plans, Olivia suggested hopefully. If they're buying the land anyway, maybe they'd consider maintaining some of the family connection. Actually, I interjected, unable to hold back any longer. I already know their intentions for the land. Everyone's heads turned toward me on their screens, expressions ranging from surprise to suspicion. You do? Mom asked, brow furrowing in confusion. I nodded, taking a deep breath. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the culmination of my carefully orchestrated plan. Yes, because I'm the one who bought it. The silence that followed my revelation was deafening. I watched their faces transition from confusion to disbelief to shock. What are you talking about? James finally sputtered, his composure completely shattered. Woodland Creek Holdings LLC, I said calmly. That's my company. I just bought both of your shares of Grandpa's land. That's impossible, James said, his voice rising. You can't afford... Actually, I can, I interrupted. You made assumptions about my financial situation without having all the information. That was your first mistake. But how? Olivia asked, her eyes wide. The offer was substantial. I smiled slightly. I made some good investments that recently paid off. As a financial advisor, I occasionally get opportunities others don't. One of them happened to be particularly lucrative. James's face had turned an alarming shade of red. This is underhanded. You deliberately misled us. Did I asked, arching an eyebrow. Or did I simply use the legal mechanisms available to me, just as you were planning to use your financial advantage to minimize my role in our family legacy? It's not the same thing, he protested. Isn't it? You tried to use your money to control the situation. I used mine. Mom was shaking her head slowly. I don't understand. Why go through all this trouble? Why not just tell us you had the money to contribute to the family compound? Because this wasn't about money, I explained gently. It was about respect. About acknowledging that I have equal right to determine what happens with Grandpa's land, regardless of my financial situation. James made it clear that in his view, my worth was tied directly to my bank account. That's not true, James objected, but his protest sounded hollow even to his own ears. Your exact words were, "If you're not helping financially, don't come," I reminded him. You were ready to write Emma and me out of the family story because you thought I couldn't pay the entry fee you'd established. So what happens now? Dad asked quietly. You own 2/3 of the property. What are you planning to do with it? I leaned forward, making eye contact with each of them through the screen. That depends. On what? Olivia asked nervously. On whether we can reset this entire conversation and approach it as equals. Not as financial partners with differing levels of investment, but as siblings who all have equal say in how our grandfather's legacy is honored. James was silent, his expression a mixture of anger and grudging respect. I'm willing to move forward with a family compound, I continued, but with significant changes to the current plan. First, we preserve the old oak tree and incorporate it into the design. Second, we renovate the original farmhouse rather than tearing it down. Third, we scale back some of the more extravagant elements to make the project more affordable for everyone. You can't just dictate, James began. Actually, I can, I interrupted. I own 2/3 of the property now, but I'm not interested in dictating terms the way you tried to. I'm proposing we start over, as equals, with genuine respect for each person's input regardless of their financial contribution. And if we don't agree? James challenged. I shrugged. Then I'll develop my portion of the property as I see fit. Maybe a nature preserve in Grandpa's name. Maybe a small sustainable retreat center. Or maybe just a modest home for Emma and me, where we can maintain the land as Grandpa would have wanted. Olivia was crying softly now. This was supposed to bring the family together, not tear us apart. I agree, I said gently. That's why I'm giving us a chance to start over, but this time, on equal footing. The call ended with no resolution, just a stunned silence as everyone processed what had happened. I logged off feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. I hadn't wanted things to reach this point, but I also couldn't allow myself and my daughter to be sidelined. The next day I received a text from James. Can we talk? Just the two of us. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes, neutral territory. James arrived looking tired. The usual confidence in his bearing diminished. I've been thinking about what you said, he began after we'd gotten our drinks. About respect and equality. I nodded but said nothing, waiting. I didn't see it before, he admitted. How I was treating you. In my mind, I was just being practical, making the project happen. I didn't realize how I was making you feel. Excluded. It wasn't just feelings, James. You were actively planning to exclude me and Emma from the family legacy because you thought I couldn't meet your financial requirements. He winced. When you put it that way, that's the only way to put it, I said firmly. James stared into his coffee cup. I guess I've gotten used to being in charge, making the decisions, the successful one. We measure success differently, I pointed out. While you were building your construction business, I was raising Emma alone and taking care of Grandpa in his final years. That's valuable too, even if it doesn't show up on a balance sheet. He nodded slowly. You're right. And I'm sorry. Truly. For the first time since this conflict began, I felt the tension in my shoulders ease slightly. Thank you for saying that. So what now? He asked. You really own 2/3 of the property? I do, I confirmed. The paperwork was finalized yesterday. He shook his head, a reluctant smile tugging at his lips. I have to admit, I'm impressed. I never saw it coming. That's because you underestimated me. Don't make that mistake again. I won't, he promised. So, are you serious about still building the family compound? I am, I said, but with changes, as I mentioned. and with a genuine partnership where everyone's voice is respected. "Including the oak tree?" he asked, a hint of his old teasing tone returning. "Especially the oak tree," I confirmed with a smile. "Some things are worth preserving, even if they're inconvenient." Over the next week, we had several family meetings to reset the entire project. I brought in a new architect who specialized in adaptive reuse of historic structures, someone who could see the value in preserving elements of the past while creating space for the future. The new plans emerged gradually. A renovated farmhouse that would serve as the communal gathering space. 3 modest but comfortable homes arranged around the property, each designed to complement the natural landscape. And at the center, the old oak tree, now the focal point of a shared garden where our children could play as we once had. The costs were significantly lower with this approach, making it feasible for each of us to contribute without financial strain. But more importantly, the process had become truly collaborative, with each family member's input valued and incorporated. 6 months later, we broke ground on the project. Standing beside the old oak tree, watching as Emma and her cousins played nearby, I felt Grandpa's presence strongly. James approached, handing me a shovel for the ceremonial first dig. "You were right," he said quietly. "This is better. More true to what Grandpa would have wanted." "It's not about being right," I replied. "It's about honoring the past while building the future. Together." As I pushed the shovel into the soil, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. It hadn't been easy, and there had been moments when I feared our family might fracture beyond repair. But standing our ground sometimes meant having the courage to fight for what was right, even against those we loved. The land would remain in our family as Grandpa had intended, a legacy not just of property but of values, respect, equality, and the understanding that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the strength of our connections to each other and to the places that shape us. Later that evening, as the family gathered on the farmhouse porch to watch the sunset, my phone buzzed with a text from a cousin. "Heard you bought the entire land. Badass move. Grandpa would be proud." I smiled, watching Emma swing from the old oak tree, her laughter carrying across the property. Yes, I thought, he would be.